Don't miss this year's Commercial UAV Expo, September 2nd to the 4th in Las Vegas. It's the premier event for the commercial UAS community, focusing this year on drones in action. Use code SAVE100 for a $100 discount or a free Expo Pass. For more information, go to expouav.com.
This has now turned into one single operator on a laptop, monitoring the airspace and managing the airspace, controlling the docking station, flying the drone, and distributing that information to every stakeholder that needs it. You no longer need to train a dozen pilots. No longer need to have a bunch of stick time. And our goal when we were building this product and designing the product was to make it as easy to use and seamless as possible.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 444. Power Drone is first responder programs, transforming the way local law enforcement respond to crime and emergencies. For that question, we head to Atlanta, Georgia, to speak with Brett Kanda, Director of Drone as First Responder Sales at Flock Safety. Flock Safety is a leading safety technology platform that helps communities thrive by taking a proactive approach to crime prevention and public security. Flock's end-to-end suite of hardware and software connects cities, law enforcement agencies, businesses, schools, and neighborhoods into a nationwide public-private safety network. Today, Flock is trusted by over 5,000 communities, 4,500 law enforcement agencies, and 1,000 businesses to deliver real-time intelligence while maintaining the highest standards of privacy, data integrity, and responsible innovation. At Flock, Brett leads the DFR Specialist team, focusing on reducing emergency response times and improving community safety. Before Flock acquired Aerodome, Brett was the company's first employee and served as Senior Vice President of Business Development, where he spearheaded go-to-market efforts for their NextGen DFR platform. With more than a decade of experience in the unmanned aerial systems industry, Brett has a deep expertise in UAS technology, regulatory frameworks, and market strategy. His previous roles include key positions at Brink, FLIR Systems, and the Nevada Institute for Autonomous Systems, where he helped grow drone businesses and expand their customer reach. He also co-founded 2 drone startups, focused on delivering actionable insights through UAS technology. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Brett shares insights on Flock Safety's innovative Drone as First Responder program and how this cutting-edge technology is helping local law enforcement agencies enhance public safety and fight crime more effectively. But before we hear from Brett, I want to stress that your support is the heartbeat of my podcast. Every episode is crafted with you in mind, and your generous donations ensure I can keep delivering the content you love. Whether it's a price of a coffee or a more substantial contribution, every bit helps to defray the cost of production. Donate today and be a vital part of the podcast's continued to greatness. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And if you can, please subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave a nice review. It really helps improve the podcast ranking among the many thousands of active podcasts today. And by the way, if you have a great story on the use of drones that you'd like to share in a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's learn how drone as first responder technology has evolved to help local communities fight crime with Brett Kanda of Flock Safety. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Brett to introduce himself.
I'm Brett Kanda from Flock Safety.
Brett, let's start with the basics. Can you tell us about flock safety and what the company does?
Flock safety is on a mission to eliminate crime and create thriving communities. What that essentially means is we are building technology for public safety around the country to help not only collect evidence, but provide platforms and software to help analyze that evidence and ultimately close cases faster. But we as a company are, on a mission to essentially eliminate crime around our country.
What are the core products and services you provide?
So we make a lot of different products. On the hardware side of the house, the company started about 8 years ago, and the core product was automatic license plate readers, right? So we now operate the biggest network of license plate readers around the country. So that was kind of the core business. But since the early days, we have gotten to market many, many products. So we sell automatic license plate readers. We also have, PTZ live video camera options, gunshot detection, drones, and then a number of different software platforms to help consolidate all that data and make sense of it. And we also provide services. So we're kind of a turnkey solution in terms of installation and maintenance. And we try and make it really easy for a city or an HOA or a law enforcement agency to deploy our technology and ensure that it's reliable and operational day after day.
To help listeners visualize it better, can you explain how Flock's technology enhances public safety? Basically, what are public safety agencies using it for today?
We'll kind of start with the beginning of the workflow, which is gathering evidence, right? So whether that is from our license plate readers, live video, fixed cameras, PTZ cameras, mobile trailers, gunshot detection, now Flock 911, that's kind of the beginning of that chain, right? And so when we move into trying to analyze all that data, what's really unique about Flock is our public-private partnerships, because actually the first set of cameras that were sold at Flock Safety were to HOAs. And so imagine now an HOA that has a stolen vehicle that comes in and out of their property, and that can immediately go to law enforcement and notify them. So we are building a public-private partnership that allows law enforcement to solve cases faster, right? And the best way to help eliminate crime is, at the end of the day, to deter crime, right? We have hard data around the country that when a city has Flock cameras around that city, over time, the amount of stolen vehicles that go through that area decreases because they know our cameras are there, right? And that's a very nice transition into, DFR, which is now the response element of our existing business. But again, it's providing that citywide visibility into crime that's taking place, and to be able to easily analyze all of that evidence that law enforcement ultimately has to capture and make sense of.
What are some of the technical and operational hurdles your team faced in deploying drones for Flock 911?
We actually zoom out a little bit and think back to the first days of DFR and Chula Vista Police Department down in San Diego. We saw this use case and technology applied at a limited rate because of some regulatory hurdles as well as technology hurdles. But what we've seen now in the last 4 to 5 years is DFR is one of the hottest trends in policing, and real-time policing at that. And so what's the reason for doing this? What's the why behind DFR? Well, if we think about how public safety has used drones traditionally, we call it a patrol-led model, right? Where you have drone pilots, they have drones in the back of their vehicles, a 911 call comes in, or there's an incident that's already happening. That officer has to drive to the scene, pull the drone out of their trunk, put it in the air, and now they're a dedicated drone pilot at that scene. Well, the issue with that is that it takes a lot of drones and a lot of people to cover the city. The drone is not actually getting eyes on first, right? And it's not necessarily a force multiplier technology, which in today's policing environment is critically important, because some of the biggest issues that law enforcement is facing is a lack of staffing and being able to recruit new folks, right? And also increase response times. So I think the popularity and adoption of DFR is a direct correlation with the problem that it's solving. So DFR, right, is designed at its from a first principles perspective is to get eyes on scene first, right? So that officer that's responding can either be on a mobile phone, they can be on their MDT in their vehicle, watching that airborne perspective of exactly what's happening so they can make better decisions with more information, right? Now, if we think about that sequence, traditionally, think in your community, someone breaks into your home. You call 911. Who do you talk to? A dispatcher, right? And you're going to try to describe and explain exactly what's happening at that incident. The dispatcher is going to do their absolute best to make sense of what's happening and then relay that information to officers in the field. Because DFR is all about speed and getting there first, we thought to ourselves, well, what if we could provide an experience where a community member who calls 911 10, 15, 20 seconds after being on the phone gets a text message and says, there is a law enforcement drone above your house assessing the situation. We will be there soon. I'd be really happy about that, right? So we built a partnership with a company called Prepared, and together we built a product called Flock 911. Now, essentially what this allows you to do is jump that CAD event being created, meaning in our solution and in our software, me as the drone operator, which the way DFR operates, I can be anywhere in the world as long as I have my laptop and a decent internet connection. I can actually now see the location of that 911 call. And I can also see an AI-based transcription of exactly what's happening in that conversation before dispatches even had the time to make the notes, get it out to an officer. So we go from, call it a 3-minute response time using traditional methods of DFR, where again, we're going to deploy the drone based on what's called a CAD event. And now we can deploy the drone while that conversation is still happening and dispatch is still on the phone, right, with that community member. So it's all about speed and it's all about jumping that CAD call and getting there much faster. So that's what we're really excited about, in terms of our capabilities and ensuring community members feel safe and know that their local law enforcement agency is going to get there really quickly, whether that's an officer physically being there or eyes on being able to, for example, let's say someone broke into your house, right? I would want a drone with night vision and thermal imaging to have a wide view perspective just in case there was more people coming into the home, right? Or that person came out of the home and started running. I want that information. And when you don't have an officer on scene or you have an officer that's at ground level, it's tough to get that information. But from a drone at 200 or 400 feet, you're going to have all that information at your disposal to make better decisions.
I imagine integrating drones is a new workflow for many public agencies. How do you help departments understand and adopt this technology into their systems?
Directly to your point, this is not just a law enforcement asset. We view this as an asset for the city, whether that's supporting fire, search and rescue, law enforcement. There's even fringe use cases of, hey, if you want to go inspect a bridge in your city or a new road that's being built, if there's not a call going on, there's no reason why you can't fly the drone over, take some pictures, get some video, right? And so we really do view this as a city asset. Now, this ties perfectly into a new trend in law enforcement that's called real-time policing. At Flock, we build multiple products to support this new concept of real-time policing, and we've hired a team even to really go after this. Now, what does this mean? Right? This means a centrally located group of people inside of a law enforcement agency that is bringing in all of the sensor feeds into a local area, whether, again, that's gunshot detection or live video or drone footage or our license plate readers, compiling all of that sensor data into one location so that these real-time operators can help officers on the ground, right? And get them the right information at the right time so that everybody can go home safely at the end of the day. So when we start talking about what a deployment looks like, typically what we're focused on is ensuring that we have full city coverage. We want to be able to cover the entire jurisdiction. And as a city planner, you know that typically fire departments are strategically located around a city, as are city halls, police departments. We are looking for these government-owned buildings throughout a city to ensure that we can launch from that location and cover the entire jurisdiction. And again, what we're really seeing is this trend of real-time policing, real-time information centers, adopting DFR at a very, very significant rate because in their eyes, this is now just a flying camera, right? Or a flying LPR camera. And we don't have to worry about traffic, right? We don't have to worry about obstructions. We can move around obstructions. There's so much flexibility that a drone offers to these real-time centers that they just traditionally haven't had.
Are the drones housed in drone-in-a-box systems across the city, ready for autonomous dispatch when needed?
Well, as you know, the holy grail of the drone industry is beyond visual line of sight, right? And I can say in my about 13 years of being in the drone industry, this is the fastest I've seen the FAA move and really support these, critical industries like drone as a first responder. So you're absolutely right. Now, if we think back again, if we just kind of rewind the clock a little bit, the Chula Vista model, which they invented and Fritz Reber invented down there as a captain, relied on a visual observer up on the rooftop to satisfy regulations. Now, that visual observer has 3 jobs. Number 1 is to hold the controller, point it at the drone, maintain connectivity. Great. Job number 2 is to swap the batteries as soon as the drone lands. Job number 3 is to use their eyes to scan the environment, make sure they deconflict and you don't hit any other low-flying fixed-wing aircraft or helicopters or other drones. What we've done is use technology to replace all of those jobs. So we use sensors like a radar to track all the aviation activity in the area. We use docking stations to do exactly what you said, to be the house of the drone, right? So these are docking stations that sit around cities, strategically located, that have charging capabilities, and also HVAC, right? Because if you just think, for example, we have customers in Arizona in the summer. A lot of things are going to melt in an Arizona summer. So we had to have industrial HVAC included in our docking stations to make sure they stayed operational and that the batteries in the drone remained healthy. So we had to basically take this culmination of hardware and build it into a solution, with the docking station being one element of that, combined with airspace awareness sensors.
Have there been concerns or pushback from the public or even regulators about the pace of deployment, especially around BVLOS operations? And how do communities respond to the safety and privacy aspects of the system?
Well, Randy, I would say that us as technologists and private industry, we always feel like we can go faster than regulation. So I don't think that beyond visual line of sight is necessarily a technical problem or a technical issue. It's much more of a policy and regulation-based issue, which we're really excited about Part 108 coming out. And again, agencies around the country have been receiving beyond visual line of sight waivers. And I think potentially at the community level that are not necessarily as tuned into what happens in the drone regulation world, I don't think that they know that this is actually a thing, to be honest. So when we interact with communities and ensure that they know what's happening, because that's very important, we talk about this, right? We talk about the safety element. We talk about the transparency element. And we talk about what actions we put in place and what policies we put in place to make sure those things happen. And so, to be very frank, we haven't necessarily had pushback or concern from communities around beyond visual line of sight specifically. And it's much more around, privacy and what types of calls are you going to go to and things more related to DFR specifically.
Can you share a few examples of communities that are currently using the Flock 911 system?
Yeah, we're in dozens and dozens of communities around the country. But the ones that we've been public about and have done, public facing events with are agencies like Elk Grove, California, up near Sacramento, Hawthorne Police Department, located down in LA, Alhambra Police Department in Los Angeles, Scottsdale, Arizona, Dunwoody, Georgia, Prosper, Texas, These are all communities and agencies that we've been working with for a while now that can really quantify the impact of this type of technology.
What lessons have you learned from these early adopters?
Well, Randy, what's great about the technology we've built is that we're not guessing. We've built a part of the workflow called a community engagement dashboard. It's basically an automated dashboard that we've built that lives on the agency's website so that any community member, city manager, city leadership can see how this investment is going. Now, this data populates after each flight on the website, and it's going to give them information like, what's our average response time? How many missions has DFR flown to? What is the average reduction in response times? How many suspects have been found with the use of drone as a first responder? And then we blend a combination of what's called computer-aided dispatch data and DFR data so they can see in a pie chart, these are the types of calls that our agencies have been responding to, right? So whether that's a welfare check, whether that's an aggravated assault, whether that's a trespassing call, you can really see what types of calls for service that the agency's been responding to, what that impact looks like, and ultimately have hard data to go off of when you're assessing as a mayor or a city manager, is this technology that we invested in actually working, right? So there is no guessing when it comes to this. And we can confidently say that agencies like, Hawthorne Police Department, Alhambra Police Department, we're talking 80 to 90 second, response times throughout their city and hundreds of subjects located with the use of DFR. And not to mention, Randy, there's one other element of this that was kind of a byproduct of the early use cases of DFR. The ability to send the drone to what they would deem as low priority calls to get eyes on before they have to send a resource like an officer is a huge force multiplier, right? So the ability to clear a call for service without having to send out that resource is really where the cost savings and, return on investment come from for a city, which is really exciting. We're seeing about 20 to 25% clearance rates within our customer base right now. So that's an important element of DFR that we've come to really appreciate.
Have any of your clients surprised you with how they've used the technology? Any particularly innovative or unexpected applications?
It's a really good question. I think what's been most surprising now after tens of thousands of flights from our customers is the growing list of use cases that they want to fly to. Now, we support that early on from a policy perspective, but at the same time, we're seeing our operators kind of default and frankly, patrol on the ground defaulting, say, can you guys send the drone? It's just happening more and more often. I would say our customers are averaging 15 to 20 flights per day. Now, there are tons of stories where lives have been saved and impacted, and I don't necessarily want to go into too much detail about that because of the sensitive nature of the information. But yeah, it's really this growing list of use cases that we're seeing across the country from these agencies with the use of DFR because of how easy it is to use and how important that information is for patrol on the ground to have access to.
During my planning career, I worked in hazard mitigation and post-disaster redevelopment. After hurricanes or floods, it was always a challenge to assess where the damage truly occurred. Do you see a role for drones in rapidly surveying post-disaster environments to help planners and emergency managers with real-time data?
You're absolutely right. And I immediately think about Los Angeles after these fires. Personally, I'm born and raised in Pasadena, and to kind of see my hometown in that state is alarming. But I think to, LA, I think to the hurricanes that happened in Florida, some of the flooding that's happened in North Carolina. These are, again, another bullet point on the list of use cases that this type of technology can support. But, Randy, the ones that I think hit home for all of us here at Flock are the situations where a child is recovered, right, from an Amber Alert, or an elderly person goes missing and the DFR team is able to locate that person, find them, and return them home safely. Those are the day-to-day things that are happening because of this technology and being able to cover a really, really big area really quickly. Those are the things that at the end of the day just make people feel safer in their communities, which at the end of the day is going to attract people to want to live in those cities. and create thriving communities. And adopting new technologies is an important part of this kind of safe city concept that we come to sometimes in the US overlook it and expect it, but it's not a given. And so our job here is to help give communities the technology they need to thrive.
Beyond the hardware and software, what does a community need to implement a system like Flock 911?
My answer might surprise you a little bit, but think about it first from the coverage area of the drone. One of our drones can cover 38 square miles. So at first, we're going to start with, okay, how many square miles is this city? What's the geographical layout of this city to determine how many stations are going to actually work? And then that's really one of the biggest value propositions of DFR. This has now turned into one single operator on a laptop, monitoring the airspace and managing the airspace, controlling the docking station, flying the drone, and distributing that information to every stakeholder that needs it. You no longer need to train a dozen pilots. No longer need to have a bunch of stick time. And the part that's going to sound weird to you is we actually designed our solution and our software more from a gaming perspective than flying drones. So what we've seen is, at some of these agencies that might have a drone pilot that's potentially a little bit younger, or they're a gamer on the side, we sit them down in the seat, and in 5 to 10 minutes, they don't need me anymore. They know exactly what to do, and this is just second nature for them. So our goal when we were building this product and designing the product was to make it as easy to use and seamless as possible so that it wasn't cumbersome for an agency, because most of these officers and sergeants and lieutenants, this is just one of their many jobs. The harder it is for them to operate the system, fly the drone, manage the airspace, the less likely they are to use it every single day, every single hour. So that's kind of the way we approached it. And so you can really, now no human's going to stay up for 24 hours, but you could argue two folks could give an agency 24-hour-a-day capabilities.
Is there anything about the technology or the service we haven't touched upon that you think is important for public agencies to understand?
I think that as we are in this shift as an industry with drone manufacturers, it's going to be more and more important to build drones that are not necessarily a catch-all for every use case. We're starting to see more definition on a per user and per vertical basis. Here's a great example, right? Most, call it enterprise industrial users, you want to go inspect a solar farm, you want to go inspect transmission line, one of your assets, you're going to want a very high resolution 3D model of that asset. For our DFR operators, that isn't necessarily as important. What do they care about? Being able to zoom in on a license plate, right? Being able to one-click fly very quickly to a 911 call location. And I think, well, at least what we're focused on and what our opinion is you have to have the right drone for the mission. And to make this very clear, I spent about 3 years working over at Brink, and we were very focused on the indoor tactical market. And when you're building an indoor tactical drone, the entire stack is different. The camera is going to be different. The radio is going to be different. The flight controller is going to be different because it's designed for close proximity indoor GPS denied environments. Whereas if I'm talking to a state patrol or a state police or a huge county, well, they don't really care about that element of it. They want something more like an eVTOL fixed wing that can stay up for 2.5 hours, use that type of drone for pursuits on highways, being able to cover 100, 200, 300 square miles. That's a completely different platform from your indoor tactical option. And what we're focused on at Flock is providing the full solution and every option to an agency, with the consistent layer being our software and operating system. So I think that's what's really important, combined with building out an ecosystem, because our users, they don't want 5 logins, right? They don't want 5 different screens with 5 different pieces of software trying to make sense of everything. They want it all in one. And I would want that too, right? The same way we've been accustomed to the Google workspace or the Microsoft workspace. We are trying to provide that level of holistic solution for communities. public safety agencies, private elements of a community. And I think that's going to be really important to make sure that users adopt this type of technology.
Looking ahead, how do you see DFR programs evolving over the next 5 years? What role do you see them playing in the broader public safety landscape?
I think we're going to see adoption rates like we've never seen for a use case in our industry. I see that every day on the field. I can pretty confidently say that there is not a chief of police that does not know what DFR stands for at this point, which is kind of remarkable. So I think we are going to see as a society this become commonplace in both small cities and large cities across the country. I think that it's on us as industry to partner with these public agencies to communicate why this is being used. I think that's going to be important. But I think in 5 years, I'd be shocked if 50% of police departments did not have some version of a DFR program. So I think adoption rates are going to skyrocket and increase faster than any other use case we've ever seen. And I think that automation is going to be dramatically improved over the next 5 years to where, I spent time working at the FAA. Do I think that we're going to be removing the human from the loop in the next 5 years? No, I don't. I still think there's going to be a pilot involved. I just think that pilot that's a remote operator is going to be spending very, very little time flying the drone. And they're going to be spending most of their time analyzing the situation and distributing the information, right? Really policing as opposed to being a drone pilot. Those are two very, very different things. And I just think with the pace that AI is evolving and machine learning is evolving and compute is evolving, we're just going to see this evolution in automation and ease of use for end users that we're all really excited about and building towards.
So what's next for Flock? What's on the horizon for the company?
A lot of things. We're going to continue the mission to eliminating crime, right? Whether that's software or hardware or services, we're going to approach it from every angle and try and continue to build best-in-class products, right? Whether that's camera or AI-based analytics. We are investing heavily in our people. We are hiring aggressively every single day and bringing in just amazing people from all different walks of life and different industries to help march towards this mission, which is a really audacious one, right? Eliminating crime is not a small mission for a company. We're about 1,300 people today, and I expect that number to continue to grow. And what's really important to us as a company is product velocity. I can say, I was the first employee at Aerodome, so I've really been at Flock since about October. And in the past, call it 7 to 8 months, the pace at which we ship and deploy new products is incredible. And I don't see that pace slowing down anytime soon.
And for my final question, Brett, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of the drone industry?
I think I've had a unique perspective on the drone industry in my career, and I've seen it from a lot of different angles. The message that I would leave behind for the drone industry is to focus more on your customers versus competition. That's the most important part. And we need to focus as an industry on building products that are at parity with what we're used to operating out in the field. Because at the end of the day, the best companies in the world are focused on their customers, not their competition. And I think the drone industry at large could learn from that and spend more time focusing and obsessing over customers versus who they're going up against every day.
That's it for episode 444 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Brett Kanda of Flock Safety. I want to thank Brett for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Flock Safety or want to connect with Brett, check out the webpage at flocksafety.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, then please subscribe and share. Write a glowing review on your favorite platform. And if you're able, donate to keep the podcast going. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Gores.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.